Yeah, time to get off that fun topic, and instead, let's talk about something else. Something that is far more fun. Apparently, it's Sylvie Snow making me say, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Apparently, that's the thing that I have to do. No, it's going to be talking about Michael Knowles. But first, the fan art section. So this piece of fan art comes from Undead Rodent Art. No context is given on here, but it is a fun picture, and it is definitely another person trying to convince me that I am a furry. Probably. Still not the case. Anyways, thank you very much for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. Also, Rahab Makalala, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thank you for redeeming your points for an oh, and Cinder, thank you for redeeming your points for an hada, you fucking degen. That all said, let's go ahead and get into talking about this guy right here. So I've gathered a handful of shorts from Michael Knowles' channel, because I think some of the less long-winded rhetoric of his is still worth analyzing. So, let's take a listen.
Sunny Hostin, she just came out at a time when woke is at its absolute lowest. And she said to oppose woke, actually, is ungodly and unchristian.
The conversations you and I have had, Whoopi, so many times about the co-opting of the word woke. And the fact that the right somehow has made it a dirty word. To be woke is a word that came out of the African-American community, and it was about acknowledging social justice inequities.
Yeah, this is actually true. So the old phrase was stay woke. This is from the early 2000s into 2010s, and this was a way for people to remind other people that, hey, there's a lot of dumb shit going on that is hurting whichever people they are at the time. In this case, it was Black Americans. And then it got kind of sort of co-opted a little bit by conspiracy theorists who would go on to talk about the Bilderbergers and stuff like that and say, stay woke. And then it got boiled back down to a bit of social justice language. And that's when the right took it and turned it into a smear campaign.
Acknowledging people suffering. It is not a bad thing to care about other people, to care about the sufferings of others, and to act upon it. And so Whoopi will often tell me, well, I've never been asleep. Yeah. And that's how I feel. My parents, you know, they grew up in the civil rights movement. I grew up in the late 60s, 70s. I was always a part of it. And so I've never been asleep. And so it angers me when people are like, this woke stuff, it's got to go. That's telling me that you don't care about my lived experience. You don't care about the oppression of the LGBTQ community. You don't care about the oppression of the disabled. You don't care about the oppression of immigrants. You don't care about your fellow neighbor. And that is ungodly. That is not Christian.
Leftism is Christianity without Christ. It's proof of what Chesterton.
So I have a question, Michael. Do you think that's true of even leftist people who are Christians? Like, do you believe that specifically? Weird. Paige says, I thought woke is a term described the enlightened dating back to the 1800s. So the phrase stay woke has been a part of African-American English vernacular since the 30s in America. By the 70s, it gained more political connotations as we're dealing with the civil rights movement. And the version that we are most familiar with in regards to this conversation is from late aughts, 2010s. This is where the hashtag stay woke comes from. Over time, woke then started to define a more broad awareness of different inequalities. Inequalities for trans people, gay people, and of course, in its original vernacular, black people. Woke is an adjective that predates the 30s, yes, Paige. But the phrase stay woke, which is the version that is being adapted for all of this, is from there. We can be ridiculously pedantic about this, but it adds nothing to the conversation. During 2014, during the Ferguson protests, the phrase stay woke was then popularized by BLM. And it was at this moment that it started to see its usage in the Oxford Dictionary after about 3 more years. And then, once you hit 2019, once you hit the late first Donald Trump's presidency, you get the pejorative version of woke being used by the right wing. So, if we talk about Jesus Christ, and the types of things that he would have tried to argue for, I think that we would definitely have a Jesus that would care more about social equality if the version of Jesus that most Christians subscribe to was who he is. The man who passed out free fish and gave out free healthcare 100% cared a little more about social equality. Now, he didn't say a whole lot about slavery at the time. I don't know why. This is something about being limited by the verbiage of the time and what would have been acceptable at the time, which is a weird thing for a god to be limited by. You know, almost like he wasn't there. Davini says BLF. What's BLF? I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. I said BLM, but sure. I have no idea what the fuck BLF is. Rahab says, dine with prostitutes, thieves, and homeless people and marched into a church with whips. Yeah, the dude definitely was more of a social justice warrior than the right seems to think Republican Jesus was. Clueless says, I'm not sure if that's true because Jesus would have cared a lot more about getting right with God in time for the apocalypse. You mean the apocalypse that he 100% would have known was coming and when it was coming and that it didn't matter? Elena says, Jesus literally looked at the camera and said, pay your taxes, kids. Jesus was co-opted as an image as an image in the Bible. Jesus. But regardless, the dude who gave away free healthcare definitely knew a little bit more about social inequality. Just saying, if I were to accept that he was a real person, which still kind of iffy on, not gonna lie. Anyways. But, Michael, what the fuck do you have to say about this?
Your fellow neighbor, and that is ungodly. That is not Christian.
Leftism is Christianity without Christ. It's proof of what Chesterton observed in Orthodoxy, which is that when a religious scheme is shattered, it's not just the vices that run wild, but the virtues that run wild. And the virtues actually run more wild because they're separated from each other.
So, this is technically true. When people are obsessed with religion, and their obsession with making sure that social inequality is taken care of is informed by religion. Once you remove the religion and they don't have that foundation anymore, they tend to lean a lot harder into those social causes because they don't have anything else. They don't have anything else anymore at that point. There is certainly something to be said about that, yes. But the thing is, I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't know if vices are necessarily a bad thing or virtues are necessarily a good thing on their own. If your vice is playing Magic the Gathering, and the end result of that is it gets you out of the house, it gets you talking with people, it gets you involved in political movements with people who are like-minded around you, that's kind of weird. I thought that vice was bad. John Hopkins says, I kind of agree with him on that one. The moneylenders were in the temple courtyard, profiting off of people who couldn't bring sacrifices hundreds of miles. Oh, we're talking about the Bible stuff anyway. I don't know. This feels like a general way to say that, no, you can do good things while being a Christian, but you can't be good without being a Christian. This feels like another way to say that, but I don't think that holds true at all in any way, shape, or form. Also, half the shit that he considers vices, like, I don't know, fucking homosexuality, aren't vices. So I don't know if I care.
The real key to this speech, the real key to how it all played out, was when Trump set a trap for Democrats by telling them how they were going to behave for the rest of the night.
This is my 5th such speech to Congress. And once again, I look at the Democrats in front of me, and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do. I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, a disease that would wipe out entire nations.
Have you considered trying to actually do those things, though? Like, Trump, you know that what you're trying to do is argue that people will not like anything you do because you're Trump, when that's not necessarily true for most people. There are a lot of people who act that way, 110%. There are a lot of people who act as if nothing that you do will ever be good. And they're mostly correct, you know, just a little bit, but it's not because of you. It's because of your track record. It's because of who you are and what you are doing with who you are. You have massive celebrity status. That's who you are. And you're trying to say, well, that's where the buck stops. That's where the buck stops for Democrats. They don't like that I'm me. They don't like that I'm popular. They don't like that I'm who I am and have power, when realistically most people wouldn't fucking care if you did good things with that power. If you did good things with that popularity. You don't go out and find cures for diseases. You argue that ivermectin cures a disease when it fucking doesn't, or a virus rather. You argue that DEI has to be stripped, and your cronies argue that Social Security has to be stripped away from people. Trump, the reason people don't like you is because of the things you do, not because of who you are.
Or announce the answers to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest levels ever recorded. And these people...
I wonder, is crime lower than it's ever been? Hold on, crime rates, U.S. by year. Just curious here. Just curious. For just a moment, I want to go to micro trends. I want to go to micro trends and see what we actually see. Oh, we don't actually have a lot of data for 2025. Most of our data is from a couple years ago. That's very interesting. That's super interesting. So ironically, ivermectin does cure brainworms. Yes, because it's an anti-parasitical. It's an anti-parasitical. So of course it works better against, you know, brainworms who are a virus. So this is just violent crime. This is not every crime, and this isn't taking into account, I don't know, white-collar crime as an example of something that could be measured here. But while after 2021, there was a uptick in violent crime that then downshifted again, or flatline, depending on if we're looking at simple assault or violent crime excluding simple assault. So, rate of theft and larceny, again, 2022 seems to be when this was at its height. 2023, it seems to have been down. I don't know. It seems like if this trend continued into 2025, that would just be the natural trend of things. It wouldn't be something for Trump to say that that he was personally responsible for. Not based on taking a very cursory look at the data. So I don't know, Trump. You're not announcing the record low crimes with any statistic we can measure that matters, and you're definitely not announcing in any way that matters. You're not announcing that you've cured a disease, because you haven't. So, I don't know, have you tried doing any of those things? And then proving that they were things you did, not things that you're just taking credit for? That's the other thing, is we know Trump is really big on taking personal credit for shit he didn't do. He does this a lot with the economy. They said I couldn't get the egg prices down. Oh, wait, sorry, you never actually did that. Like, you never actually... The egg prices didn't go down. It's like $10 for 18 eggs here.
People sitting right here will not clap, will not stand, and certainly will not cheer for these astronomical achievements.
Trump getting up there and saying that totally gutted all of the immature little tactics that the Democrats were planning to make.
How does this gut that though? Must like, dude. How I said must because I saw the sign. How does this gut those tactics? These people will not get up. They will not cheer. They will not do anything. Yeah, the fact that he knows he's not liked by Democrats, that doesn't inform us of anything. It doesn't tell us anything. What is supposed to happen here?
Make noise, to hold up stupid signs. It just made them look silly. It made them look ridiculous. Because traditionally in State of the Union addresses, the opposition party is not all that enthusiastic about what the president is saying, but for certain things, they'll stand up. We want to help people. Everyone stands up for that. We love our country. Everyone stands up for that. But in this speech, truly, Trump could get up there and say, I've cured the greatest disease. The Democrats would not applaud it.
Yeah, you know why they wouldn't applaud it, though? Because they know not to believe him. They know not to believe the known liar, Michael. What is there not to understand here? Of course they're not going to, because they know that he's a huckster. They know when it comes to listening to the shit that he says, the correct thing to do is to be speculative as opposed to, I don't know, suck his dick. But don't worry, we have more Michael Knowles being weird about shit.
Trump points out that the Democrats they tried, I guess, every Wile E. Coyote action to get him off of the dais up there to prevent him from becoming president again. And he has to rub it in their face to point out that he's back.
We've ended weaponized government where, as an example, a sitting president is allowed to viciously prosecute his political opponent.
Wait, hold on. Fantasy Dial, thank you for the follow, but also, just a real quick thing. Trump, did you just say that we've ended a government where you are able to viciously prosecute your opponents? That's so weird. Anyway, hold on. One sec here. That's weird. Can we just pull up oh man, that's so strange. That's so awkward. What about Mahmoud Khalil? What about the dude who was arguing that you're being a genocider in Gaza and that's bad, and so you decided to deport him? That's so weird that you argued that the government can't do that anymore because of you? But that's the shit you did. That's the shit you do. Like, this is actually what you do. You take people who you don't like and you vilify them. Because they had the gall to criticize you and your establishment. That's so weird that it takes 12 seconds to pull up an article where you do the exact thing you said the government can no longer do.
Like me. How did that work out? Not too good.
This was the greatest vindication of an American politician.
No, it's not the greatest vindication. It's a child celebrating a little bit of a victory. That's what it is. It's a mark of immaturity. It's like when I told a bunch of people that they need to get on the ground and grovel because they were wrong about Project 2025 and I was correct about it. I and like a billion other content creators were correct that it was actually Trump's agenda and he was just lying the entire time. That was immature of me. That was not an adult thing to do, but I did it anyway because it felt good. So I know exactly where Trump's coming from.
That we have ever seen. It was better than Nixon. Nixon had a big comeback.
It's Mahmoud? Okay. Mahmoud.
Better than Cleveland. This is the greatest vindication ever because the Democrats tried to get Nixon and they prevented him from becoming president in 1960. Some people think the election was stolen, but then he won election, he won re-election, but then they got him through a kind of deep state coup. Grover Cleveland.
Wait, are we celebrating Nixon here? Is that what we're doing? Also, Nethercat, thank you very much for resubscribing. I definitely appreciate people handing me money. What, are we celebrating Nixon, my guy? Watergate, the deep state coup.
Cleveland, he's the only other president in American history who won non-consecutive terms, but they didn't try to prosecute Cleveland. They didn't try to kick Cleveland off the ballot. They didn't raid Cleveland's home. With Trump, he went through this whole ordeal. They did everything they possibly could. They locked the country down. They changed the election rules. They tried to prosecute him 4 different times. They raided his home at Mar-a-Lago. And there he is, standing up there. He goes, how did that work out for you? I'm more popular than ever. I'm way more popular than I was last time.
Again, this is the kind of gloating that a child does. This is the kind of gloating. This is the kind of gloating that a person whose only claim to fame is the fame, who doesn't have an actual thing to their name that matters other than the fact that other people know them. Also known as React Andy Content Creator Syndrome. Anyway, next video.
I've seen something supernatural.
I'm playing with the house's money. Yeah. You have.
Yes.
What have you seen, Mary?
Wait, I thought you were going to answer as well.
Oh, you got mine right. And I said yes.
Oh, you said yes too.
Yeah.
Okay. The transfiguration. Or sorry, transubstantiation.
Oh.
Oh, you've seen transubstantiation? You've seen it? How did that look? Did you see a cracker turn to flesh in a person's mouth? That must have been kind of gross.
But, you know, if we're talking
Wow,
about
that's good. That's a good
if we're talking
answer.
about paranormal stuff, like ghosts, haven't seen that.
No.
Have not seen that.
Entertained angels unawares?
But anytime you're
I
at
guess it's unawares.
mass, I think you're witnessing something supernatural, right?
That is such a good, basic answer that is obviously true. Yes, when the bread and the wine are
Yeah, but I'm just
transfigured
being a smart ass, aren't I?
or are transubstantiated. No, you're not. You're being smart is what you're being. You're being smart as usual.
Ah, yes, let's just suck her dick because she said a thing I agree with. No. I'm sorry. When you're doing the whole, like, oh, have I seen something supernatural? And the only thing you can say is, I participated in a ritual that a religion made up, and that ritual, I definitely saw flesh get transformed from bread, which you definitely did not see, but, like, you can keep on pretending that you did. Old Gus says the wine was white, and then it was red and full-bodied and alcoholic. Mr. Malachi says you don't even see the transubstantiation even in the belief system. Correct. Correct. It's such a non-answer. I participated in basic-ass Christianity, and therefore, I've seen something supernatural.
J.D. Vance made a beautiful statement. He was asked about the Christian faith, and he made a really, really important point about the meaning of Christianity.
I believe, like, the fundamental tenet of the Christian faith, it's not just a set of good moral principles, though it is that. I think
Is it good moral principles like how much a slave is worth? Where you can get your slaves from? Like, I don't know. How much you're allowed to sell your daughter to her rapist for? It's a few shekels of silver at least.
the fundamental tenet of our faith is that the Son of God became man, he died, and then he raised himself from the dead. That is the fundamental tenet of the Christian faith, and I think so much flows from that. And I think one lesson that flows from that is that we shouldn't fear death. Of course, death is a very bad thing, but there are much more terrible things than just losing one's life. And
like torture. Torture is worse than death in most situations, because at least when it comes to the death, it's done. It's over. The torture, people often beg for death. But where are you going with this?
Importantly, you could lose one's soul. And I think whether it's fighting for the unborn or fighting for peace and security for our citizens, I want us to be the kind of society.
All right, so when he says fighting for the unborn, he really means getting rid of women's rights to abortion. So a central tenet of his faith is removing rights from women. When he says peaceful security for our people, what he's talking about is increasing police representation for our people. So he's talking about making us become even more of a police state. This is why we get shit like Cop City in Atlanta. But okay, sure. The central tenets of your faith are over-policing and stripping women of their rights.
Where my kids can grow up to be virtuous young people, can be good young Christians, of course, because that's what I'm trying to raise them to be, and that's what our public policy is trying.
Can I just say, it is kind of gross to me to try to raise somebody to be a religion. I feel like if you are religious, that should be a choice that you make with yourself and whichever deity you subscribe to. The idea of trying to shape and mold a child to be part of a religion is kind of disgusting to me.
To do.
Beautiful. And it's contradicting the prevailing spirit of the age. If it says anything nice about Christianity at all, it says that Jesus was a nice moral teacher. And J.D. Vance is saying, no. He's really not primarily a good moral teacher. The essential fact is that God becomes man and dwells among us and is crucified and is raised from the dead.
Yeah, the central thing is not the good things he taught people to do. The central thing is the spooky-ooky death part that definitely doesn't make us a death cult. Anyway.
This figure on MSNBC. She has just been canned, fired, kicked to the side of the road. Her show is over. I ain't shedding any tears. Unlike Joy Reid.
But I've been through every emotion from, anger, rage, disappointment, hurt, feeling that, guilt, that I let my team lose their jobs. But in the end, where I really land and where I've landed on today is just gratitude, just pure gratitude. And gratitude, not just because people would take the time to get on a call like this, or to take care of me, but also that my show had value and that, I'm sorry, that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I'm sorry, I try not to cry on TV. And this is kind of like me on TV, so I apologize.
You know why she's crying? Because of one word in there, had. She does this little Zoom call to meet up with her fans and followers, however many are left, after the show gets canned. And she says, I'm just so grateful that my show had value. It offered something, past tense, because it doesn't have value anymore.
Are you sure that the reason she's sad is not that she lost her job? Are you sure that the reason she's sad isn't that a bad thing happened to her, as opposed to the fact that you're being awfully pedantic with her words? Now, as for why she actually got fired, here's the actual reason why. She was fired from co-hosting The Hill's morning show Rising after facing mounting internal pressure to cover Gaza less and provide more favorable coverage to Israel in the name of balance, with no similar calls for balance being made in favor of Palestine, the country being genocided, or any other subject area they covered, nor were there any efforts to wrest editorial control over our direct-to-camera radar segments until I turned my focus to Gaza. The reason that she got fired seems to be that she was covering Gaza, and she was covering Gaza in a way that legacy media did not appreciate. And I think it's really funny that when I went digging into this, I found Sky News.
MSNBC host Joy Reid has gone on an unhinged Thanksgiving rant, blasting Donald Trump and his supporters.
So you right-wingers shouldn't have to suffer the consequences of your votes? You don't want to be around me because I voted for fascism. No fair. I'm coughing on you with COVID, but you want me to wear a mask for your safety? No fair. My body, my choice.
So the actual context here doesn't matter too terribly much, but it is interesting to me the kind of news outlets that are celebrating her losing her show. Because, listen.
Online commentators had a field day with the bizarre meltdown.
Charlie Kirk
said, always with the racism and the anger. And this commentator...
Sidebar! Why does Charlie Kirk look like somebody who got a swirly one too many times by somebody on the football team growing up, and now he's angry at the world?
Always with the racism and the anger. And this commentator agreed, saying, Joy Reid spent 10 minutes in a complete meltdown telling Trump voters they won't get a cookie, trophy or hug from her and shaming them for not masking up. No wonder MSNBC is for sale. And it wasn't only MSNBC blasting Trump supporters in their Thanksgiving messages. CNN took a more diplomatic approach in advising their viewers on how to deal with Trump supporters this holiday season.
Somebody does, we all have a provocateur in our family. And if somebody is wanting to engage in some kind of...
So the interesting part here isn't the CNN part. There is a part here where it talks about how Fox News responds, and if you want to watch the segment, you can. But when we look at the actual media bias area for Sky News, the people who are on the same side as Michael Knowles, we see that they have a very mixed chance of reporting anything factually, and they are bordering on extremist right wing when they argue their shit. It's really weird to me. It's really weird to me when we see that this is the kind of stuff that Michael Knowles celebrates. Oh, this woman lost her show? Let's not talk about the why. Let's make fun of her for it. And let's make fun of her for it because that's the only thing I can do. Again, when he talks about the paranoia about not providing value anymore, it's projection because his show has no value of its own. Not even in the slightest. But that's all we got today. I wanted to go ahead and just make fun of Michael Knowles for a little bit because if there's one thing I have learned, it is when somebody is saying that somebody else's content is bereft of any value, it is often projection on themselves. And before you type it in the comment section, I already know what I think of my content. I've been very vocal about it. Anyways, if you want to follow me and support what I'm doing, please check me out on Blue Sky. I also have a Magic the Gathering channel where I talk about things that I'm passionate about, like card games. I also have a Patreon. You can support me over on Fourth Wall by picking up the channel playmat. And, of course, you can subscribe to my channel where I talk about politics basically every day. And you can check out my stream as well on Monday through Thursday on Twitch and on YouTube. That all said, thank you for watching, and as always, insert end of the video tagline here. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full-time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.